Hi, I'm sure you've all noticed this wonderful wood decor. We are in a shabby attic, and it's cool. This is our fancy new studio.
Well, it's our old studio. We kind of started here, but yes, we are back in the attic. If our presence in this particular area happens to offend your atheist sensibilities, I sincerely apologize for the acute perturbation of your sensibilities.
It's awesome. I like it.
Alright, so hola all, welcome back to Soul Mechanics. Before we even begin, I'd like to make note of my shirt, which pays respects and homage to my mom.
Hi, Mom.
I'm gonna say that, firstly, Sweetie Cheeks' night was not ruined to any conceivable extent, and I mean, I'm pretty upset. But
this is not the time or place.
I'm gonna
bro.
go ahead and lend you credence of forgiveness. You go ahead and you just stop whining, please.
We love you.
We love you very much, Mom. Okay, so in an effort to sort of branch Madam Sweetie Cheeks out into the totality of the channel, we're going to go ahead and start engaging alternate courses from the Reality Check series, as we've already done with the Principal Dynamics video most recently. The currency, which we're not going to finish here, but we are getting around to it. It's going to be a big one, that. So, what I would like to briefly make note of here, I guess might fall into the sidetracks area of inquiry concerning the deprivation experiments, the extremity deprivation experiments, and what events have in fact transpired over the course of this month's experimental phase. So,
Are you sure it was a month?
How do you mean?
I mean, you're not good with time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know it's been, I'm not actually, I can't, don't sabotaging me.
Sorry.
I'm pretty certain it's been a month. So, I mean, it seems like a year to me, but yes, I'm pretty certain.
That's what I mean.
Anyways, there are several sort of precarious scenarios that happen to occur over the course of this phase, which is, I do believe, just a few days, really, like maybe 4 or 5 days tops. There were 2 days before we officially began the experiment, but it ultimately, I think it adds up to about 4 or 5 days that I have, again, as usual, been up and at 'em, awake, without any food or water. However, the difference this time is that I did not apply the isolation factor. In fact, I went ahead and I wandered just all over the place this time. And I wound up, at certain points, I wound up just kind of actually sort of exploring just random areas. It was like an abandoned building somewhere over nearing my mom's place. There were a few like cool alleyways and such that I went around, just walking, just having fun. This time I was celebrating because the new job that I've begun, I love it. It's fucking awesome.
Congratulations.
Which, I mean, that brings about the primary event I should like to discuss here. What actually turned out to be sort of a blessing in disguise, in a manner of speaking, but still like really hit me hard, and but before I speak to it, as regards any colleagues of mine, co-workers that may wind up watching this video, I can't really advise or even recommend, but I'm going to go ahead and request, vehemently in fact, that you do not share this with our supervisors, please, because I'm going to explain to you why here. Why I'm saying that, but there are a couple of you that I've spoken to already about this. I explained to some extent what we're doing here and not at all why. So I'm going to give you the why here as best I can. Now, a particular event that just transpired earlier, is it still today?
No, it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow already. Earlier, last night, is I think I was doing a fairly decent job at work. I mean, people were even like kind of praising me at moments. I did save a resident from acute cheese poisoning. That was a particularly cool event. Thank you, me, for doing that. But then I went ahead and I kind of committed what has to be one of the most fucking particularly disastrous mistakes I could have made, period. And I placed some, for anybody who doesn't know, I placed a rack of dishes, like a big rack of dishes, ceramic dishes, up on the, what's it called, a drying rack, above the area where, you know, we receive the dishes from. This, it's like a machine that they stick the sheet
It's called
in,
a dishwasher.
and but it's like a fucking car wash, like a
Yeah,
power
it's a
wash.
commercial dishwasher, yeah.
It's pretty cool. I've never seen one
It gets
before.
the temperatures up high enough to sanitize.
Yeah, I know. We actually have to mark off the temperatures and shit. I love this job, and I love the people. Like, I really love the people I'm working with. Anybody on my team who's watching, you fucking rock. Every one of you. I'm severely impressed with all of you. You're wonderful, awesome people, and I'm really happy to be there. Except that one girl got fired. She was mean to me, though, so... I mean, I'm not saying it's cool she got fired because she was mean to me. I'm just saying that it's not... Never mind. Anyways, so I put this rack up on the shelf, and this shelf, it's leaning, right? It's leaning forward. And, I mean, I guess Megan's somebody I've met on several occasions. She actually went to school with Richard. She's, you know, an old friend of his. They worked together there. And I met her on several occasions, but Richard, like, he'll always sort of introduce her to me. And it's like, dude,
Like, you forgot that you met her.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, nobody remembers but me. Of course, I remember because she's named Megan. And she's awesome. Megan, you are particularly awesome. She's the one go-to. She's the one that I count on to fucking bust my ass when I'm fucking up. However, she did not.
There is a trend.
Do that. Yeah, in many cases, she failed to do that. Megan, you have to go ahead and reprimand me heavily so that I don't wind up getting reprimanded by Eunice. That's a frightening prospect. I don't like that at all. I'm going to try to avoid that. But fortunately, she wasn't there. This time, she wasn't on the job, you know, during this shift where I placed it up there, and my intuition told me, you know, I don't think you should leave that there for the most part. And of course, like, out of fear of, you know, being in some way reprimanded for placing them elsewhere, and not allowing for them, because the drying rack, it's got the fan on it, so that's where obviously where they're going to dry fast enough. And the thing of it is, with this job, is that speed is the primary concern.
With most.
So, I mean, anything that hinders that, anything that causes for that time, you know, the time that it takes to accomplish these tasks to be extended, is, like, really frowned upon, and people will actually kind of freak out on you for it.
Efficiency is the name of the game.
Indeed. So I did leave it there. Speaking of efficiency, that woman never got her peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I mean, damn, dude, I told you to make that on the line. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a dick.
Okay,
No.
our viewers don't know what you're talking about, but
Right.
yes.
The woman wanted a PB&J. All she got was a P. On the inside, she got a PB.
She got a P.
Okay,
Oh my
so...
God.
That rack, or the tray, it's a rack in and of itself, but as I'm going about my business, you know, working with the other dishes, drying trays and whatnot, of course, out of the corner of my eye, I can notice, just briefly before it transpires, this rack of ceramic dishes filled to the brim with ceramic dishes go ahead and just kind of meander its way off the edge. And I am, at this point, like, I'm talking to myself. I like to kind of recite things that I might want to say here. Of course, I forgot all of them by the time we get around to making the video, but, I mean, I had, like, a particularly elegant lecture kind of plotted out. It was perfect. I was really impressed with myself, and then it's gone.
That's why sleeping is good.
Yeah, which obviously that's going to be, and that's going to render me, any arguments I may have even for myself completely moot, because I'm just automatically to blame for anything that goes wrong at this point. I am in hazardous condition. I mean, for all intents and purposes, and this is going to be one of the reasons why I don't think we should be informing other people about this, is that, I mean, it gets to a point where I'm effectively, like, kind of tripping out. And this is, that's the point of the experiment, ultimately, is to achieve these odd visionary states that, resemble what legends we have told to us in, spiritual or religious doctrines regarding people having visionary or experiencing visionary states.
No, I get it, but you still have to function in everyday life.
Yeah, I know, and it's kind of like, I mean, people will regard this insofar as concerns that the aspects regarding health. It's like, but I've always been the vanguard for things. I'm perfectly willing to put myself at risk in order to achieve things for people so that they don't have to do it. And if somebody's got to be willing to do that, right? I mean, if there are values, valuable considerations to be met via whatever methodology is being used, well, somebody's got to go ahead and do it, because as a species, humanity needs to be picking up the fucking pace and moving faster.
There's a spectrum, though. Again, like I've said many times, you can't help anybody if you aren't around.
Right, yeah.
Your intentions may be pure, but there is no service without the servicer. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, it doesn't...
There's a spectrum here. You have to find a good middle ground if you want to play around with these things. Your mind and your body. It's an interesting thing. I agree. Not a lot of people do it, which in and of itself makes it kind of a useful situation. But if you're useless, then who is it really helping,
Well, I mean, in the event that, it doesn't really seem to be immediately dangerous. Like, I don't feel as though it's threatening me in any way at any point.
No, it's little stuff,
So,
you're not, like, dropping dead on street
but
corners,
I am,
but it's little things.
There are going to be various miniature facets that transpire in regards to...
Like the dishes.
The dishes was not actually one of them,
You
though.
didn't tell anyone what happened with the dishes.
I know, I'm going to get to that, but actually, I forgot, I have to trail off for a moment here and speak to Booker. Booker is heading up the True Life crew, the True Life Stories channel. I'll put a link here as usual in the description. He's the dude who's running our live stream podcast that you have yet to, Megan, Sweetie Cheeks has yet to engage the live stream, but she will.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, you'll have fun there. They'll like you. You'll be like there's only one other girl in there so far. Anyways.
Girl power.
I have to address it because it came to mind because we spoke about, what is actually being achieved through this, and it's going to be, for all intents and purposes, it adds up to what amounts to kind of a psychedelic experience in a manner of speaking.
Yeah,
it's going to be one of the purest states of the psychedelic experience that actually requires no substances of any sort to be activated.
Yeah, fasting is a long practice tradition amongst many different I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess religions, but shaman and different wise, people in different area of practices. Fasting is a big part of the practice.
It's kind of a tradition, even.
Yeah, tradition.
A piece of the tradition, or practice of the tradition for the most part.
Gathering information and, for your purposes, you call it experiments. I think that's, a good word. I guess.
Right, and moving into, acquiring informations that are a little more difficult to kind of access via
But
ordinary.
it's all seen through that lens
It is,
of
and that's
you, and
actually
so it's
that's going to
hard to
be
translate. You have to be able to translate that into a greater
right,
group
and
of people.
that's what I'm going to attempt to do here with this video. But I mean, we have to ask a question as well, like the same sort of question as when people have dreams about the future, and then it happens. Did you foresee the future, or did you cause for it to happen? You know, we always ask that question. Now, in this case, we're going to have to turn that around and ask, because, I mean, for the most part, it would seem that the visionary experiences that I have, and as I was saying, it's obviously, there are useful measures or useful properties of this that we can see why people practiced fasting more so than just detoxifying the body or what have you. It actually,
Yeah, no, I was talking about like ancient traditions. Yeah.
Yeah, it results in these sort of visionary facets. And the thing is that they tend to line up with what people have said in the elder traditions. People have told us, you know, that the visionary experiences, for the most part, they've explained to us their prophecies or their visions, what have you, whatever they call it. And the ones that I'm experiencing, for the most part, kind of line up with theirs. Of course, we have to ask thereby, though, are they lining up because that's what I've been, like, that's what we've been told, so I'm experiencing the same thing because my brain just kind of thinks that that's what it's supposed to be doing.
The reality is coming through you through a lens.
Exactly. Or
Yeah.
am I witnessing something
ways.
that's actually, you know, objective in any conceivable sense?
Well, that's the big
That's
question.
going to be
right?
the big
Yeah.
question, and that's actually something that I wanted
Meaning
to
of life
address.
stuff.
Is that, you know, we're going to speak to the concept of there being value sets, and most specifically there being like permanent or hardwired value sets. That's something we intend to deal with here
What do you
as
mean,
best
like
we
amongst
can.
everybody?
Amongst anyone, any given person, but yeah, amongst communities or what have you. But I guess, yeah, you could say it's gonna present in communities mostly, but every individual person as well. Like, there is no, and we know this is gonna be a semi-objective reality that we can put into play, is that there is no, or there are no permanent sets. Like people have this idea that they're gonna get hardwired, and you know, whatever decisions they've made in the past, or even people before them have made in the past, they're gonna go ahead and apply that schematic to their present everyday life and refuse to step out of bounds on that. Now, Sweetie Cheeks made note of something that changed her life just immensely, just entirely altered
While we were
the entirety of her life. And go ahead and tell them what that was.
I can't remember what we were talking about exactly. We tend to
You
evolve
thought that
a
you were
conversation,
hardwired
but yeah, I
when you were
thought
younger.
everybody just kind of goes through. All right, not goes through. Everyone kind of starts out at this point where you think that you're maybe it's totally like a subconscious thing too, that you can't. You can be influenced about certain things, and yeah, you can kind of change your mind about certain issues, but you can never really change your mind about your internal, the way that you feel about things, or the way that you react to things or respond to things. And everybody just kind of starts out that way, like, this is just who I am is kind of one of them, or it's always been that way.
You do what you need to do. You stick to your guns.
That kind of stuff. And I remember, the very first time I, obviously must have been in some kind of conflict or with myself or some kind of issue, or else you wouldn't have even said it. But that very first time when you looked at me with a perfect seriousness of, just the absurdity. Yes, the sincerity. There it is. That's better. But a perfect, sincere, very serious, maybe not a question, but just, I must have been asking, some kind of great question about why does this happen, or how do I change this, or blah, 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 some stupid human...
Like, why is this what it is?
Why some stupid human problem. I mean, it could have been anything. I can't remember at the moment. It was years ago. And you just looked at me and said, change your mind. If something gets to you in a certain way and you feel powerless, change your mind, because powerless is not our starting point. And it just kind of goes without saying, it's okay.
I'm crying.
It's okay. You need to eat and sleep, dude.
I heart you.
Powerless is not where we start out. That's not our starting point. And I think that it kind of doesn't really occur to many people that you can not just change your mind about, well, like, I used to hate this food, but now I like this food. Like, just really the core freaking things that you think and feel about.
The matter of the facts at hand.
Exactly.
Is you, I mean, you own it. You own all of this. Anything that goes on in your brain, and mind you, everything is happening in your brain.
Yeah, like, oh, this makes me uncomfortable, or I have so much anxiety about this thing, or I'm really, really sad about this one thing, or I'm so freaking angry about this other thing, that it's just a very simple
just switch it out.
matter that you can take a moment and adapt yourself to the way that you want to feel or that you want to be. You get to choose who you are. And it was such a fucking weird kick in the ass moment for me. And I've tried, using it on like other people. But I want everybody to know that, like, if you really do feel powerless, that's not where you have to be. You can be in a place where you have power over yourself. And just like I, tried to impress upon my young, beautiful niece one night when she was having a, internal conflict of some sort, it was that instead of focusing on things that you can't control, she was upset about some fight she had with, I don't know, whatever it was, but how can I, why is this happening? What did I do wrong? How can I fix it? Those kinds of things. You're upset about a conflict, but really, there's not much you can do about those kinds of things. If somebody's being a dick to you, or if somebody is giving you some kind of a problem, or you have a big issue, you can't just outright assume that it's all your fault, that you need to punish yourself, that you are some way going to fix it with some magical words.
Right.
You should really focus on the things that you can
essentially
control.
You are going to fix it with some magical words.
Yeah, kind of.
Switch it out,
but
change your mind.
It's more on the part of you instead of that other person. You give yourself the power back to decide that no matter what happens, you either forgive them, you still love them, you hate them, you won't talk to them, you make a choice to X somebody that's toxic out of your life, or you decide that there's more important things and you forgive that person and they can do whatever they need to do and you'll be there. So it doesn't matter either way. It doesn't make you a bad person or a good person. It just makes you who you are, but let that be who you are instead of letting them be who you are, or letting that be who you are, that situation define you and create you. Create yourself and do what you need to do to get that internal power back. And it was such a simple word. It's 3 words. Change your mind. And that was
That's
it.
exactly true.
3 words. It's 3 words just changed my entire fucking worldview. And I could never repay you for that. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, it never even occurred to me. And I think that, people aren't stupid or anything. It just never, I don't feel like I was dumb. It just never occurred to me. And I think that happens a lot.
You have repaid me. You do repay me.
I think it happens
you
a lot.
You are one of 2 most precious persons in my entire life. Oh. I'm like crying
He's
again.
So sappy.
Damn it! I'm in this kind
it's
of.
Okay.
I get in this way when I've been up for a week at a time. So, and that's explaining what occurred with the dishes to some extent. But I mean the
accidents happen.
The values that make up essentially the context resulting, the immediate factors, what make up your consideration of the reality at hand is in fact resulting. It's feedback that comes from your perspective, from your discernment. So in every conceivable way, you own the experience. It's yours to do with as you please. You're
It's
allowed
so
to switch out
beautiful.
your values at
It's
any
so
given
beautiful.
point.
It's such a great thing, and it really does
Yeah,
empower
and
every individual.
it's your power to make use of, man.
Totally.
Don't fucking discard. Don't throw your responsibility away. Don't allow anybody to ever steal it from you.
Which is your ability to respond.
Your
Your
response
responsibility is to yourself first and foremost. Again, because you can't fucking help anyone if you're not around, or if you're metaphorically not around,
All right,
as
well,
in, i.e., useless.
fuck you, man. Obviously, I've already stated this to some of
Oh man.
my partners on my current team. That is amazing. Again, standard issue, awesome. But I'm gonna have to clip that and refrain from furthering the experiments while I'm at the very least while I'm working. Like, I mean, should I ever have like some period of vacation time, then maybe I can continue there. But as it
Yes,
stands, for the
protect
most part,
yourself.
I am no longer going to be able to conduct the experiments. And should anybody on my team actually decide to go ahead and mention this to our superior officers, as it were, our supervising peoples, at the very least, please do make note of that by decision I will no longer be conducting the experiments, because this job is exceptionally important to me. I love it very much. And it was, see, my supervisor, Eunice, she went ahead and, I'm going to try not to really like...
Why?
I,
Yes, why are you
I
using
want to
people's
try...
names? That's not a good
I'm
idea.
sorry, I apologize. I mean, it's just her first name. But the point is, I really don't want to, bring out the whole, like the last time I was working at the factory that I was taking those pictures and I was making cool little stories out of them. I invented this game that it was really cool. I was having a lot of fun with that, but as it happens, the people there, they don't like that, and I guess, in some cases you can get fired for telling other people about what you're doing at work.
Well,
Strange, concerning.
We had this conversation. You protect yourself.
Right, so that's what's going to happen here. I'm going to go ahead and do that, but my supervising lady, beautiful young lady, she went ahead and she told me not to get too far into it, because I will start crying and shit. She said to me, she said to me that, if it extended in mention of appreciation and of
Assurance.
loyalty and assurance, that she was in fact going to look out for me, and she said specifically that she will go ahead, as long as I'm able to show up on time and do the work to the best of my ability. She will ensure that I have not only a job there, but that she'll make sure that I am protected, in a manner of speaking.
And that's very sweet, and that's very nice, and it's a cool connection with another human being, but ultimately it's on your shoulders to protect yourself and to assure.
Oh, right. I didn't mean it like that. I meant she told me that she won't let anybody, put me down or infer any sort of
Weirdness,
penalty upon me in any manner.
Well, I mean, it was an accident.
But, and then they all reassured me on that. It wasn't, okay, to get in, to continue and catch up with what we need to. As I was saying, I need to make note to Booker, because he runs our primary psychedelics oriented, the live stream, the channel, the group, all of it. Booker recently did a video, just a single solo video, wherein he explained that he is currently in some degree of financial troubles, and he's worried about being able to continue the channel, the live stream, as often or at all.
How often does he do the
He
live
does
stream?
it as often as is possible. Like, I think sometimes he does it nightly. The thing is, he usually does it like right when I'm going to sleep, and of course now I'm gonna have to be absent in that regard. I need to get proper rest. I need to ensure that I am in fact engaging this job to the very best of my abilities, especially considering that I feel as though I need to make up for last night. Now,
Every night? That's often. That's a lot.
yeah. And he doesn't do it every night all the time,
Yeah,
but sometimes
that's...
there's going to be a string of them. Sometimes he does it, twice in a day. One time we did one that was 13 hours long.
That's insane and totally
It was
unnecessary.
totally awesome. We got a lot of shit covered, and that is on YouTube. I'll give you a link, in fact, to that specific video. It's full of cool shit. Anyways, as I said, Booker had expressed concern regarding his financial interests and had requested that people assist him by producing, donations. Of course, we will never ask for donations for soul mechanics. However, for anybody that is interested, in assisting, allowing for us
put the link out,
allowing, being in any way, helpful in regards to us being able to continue the projects, and anybody who wishes just to assist in furthering the projects in any way and might have $1 or $2 to spare, however much, go ahead and donate that to Booker, because on one hand, what we're doing, the projects as we are happening, what's happening with us in totality, is essentially combating the current existing system, and we're openly doing this, and the system knows. And if there are people that are running the system, people that are actually like what the conspiracy theorists or what have you might go ahead and consider to be like the bad guys behind the scenes. Of course, we're not talking about like politicians, we're not talking about law enforcement or military, we're talking about the actual big shots, the people who, that have everything, hoard everything, the people that are managing the system from elsewhere. And yes, these people do exist. It's not like a wacky conspiracy theory. There are
the 1%.
Yeah, there are very wealthy people who, for all intents and purposes, have free reign to go ahead and make the decisions that result in our society happening in whichever way they choose. And these people obviously will have created and worked to maintain the system as it stands because it profits them to some degree. And these people,
obviously,
they are aware of us. They know who we are. The initiative, as it's happening, it's not a surprise. This has been plotted. The world has been expecting this to happen for a long time. We've seen this coming. Humanity has seen this coming. So these people, they know who we are. They know what we're here to do. And ultimately, what we are in ultimate reality is a threat presented to this system. We are its natural enemy, in a manner of speaking. And we will tear it down. We will succeed.
On that note, I'm going to clip. We'll be right back.
Clip.
1 second. We'll be right back.
Fact, if you're anything buzzing, you're a liar,
the
a fraud.
Interruption. I'm so sorry.
That was my phone. So, as I was saying, we are going to be recognized largely by the system that is inherent in the world as it stands as a kind of a threat to its existence, and it is going to desperately attempt to put the brakes on us. So we are, in fact, in a manner of speaking, kind of contestants or in competition, in a manner of speaking, with this system. But I mean, at the same time, the world itself, the actual natural world behind, the living force in reality, what some people might consider to be the God concept or the God presence, it's going to be watching out for us. It's our friend. It's got our backs. So, I mean, it would not be surprising at all if Booker were to suddenly just, somehow magically come upon the money he needs. But, I mean, at the same time, it could very well be your donation that makes that happen. We do have to be supporting each other, and obviously I haven't gotten paid yet, so I'm sorry, Booker, I can't send you any money because I don't have it, and I'm not going to have it for another 2 weeks, which I think will probably be too late. But you cannot stop. Under any circumstances, I don't give a shit what kind of financial troubles you're in. If you have to do the stream once a week even, or lesser, just do it. You cannot give up. You cannot stop. You cannot meander up. And in case you're unaware, I should like to make it known here that amongst the communities especially the psychedelics communities, but all of the groups, the entire network, everybody that knows about what you're doing, if kind of is considering you to be a pretty big fucking deal, man. Like you're really kicking ass out there. We
Tip of
need
the
you in
cap.
play. Yeah, you're fucking badass what you do. And also, of course, you can reach out to especially the psychedelics oriented groups and just the network overall, and you have my full endorsement if I go ahead and verify that for anybody that doesn't know you, that you are in fact to be regarded in this sense. There will be a great deal between you and I. There's an enormous mass of respect being commanded on our part. So you can probably get the donations you need from reaching out to the network. Whatever the case, just we'll get you covered some way or another, and you need to just keep at it, keep the faith up, keep working on this. You're very important. So, I think I'm pretty sure that was it regarding Booker, but that was a segue because of it's a psychedelics oriented consideration. So, what was I saying to begin with?
Just your job and the whole dishes thing, your experiment.
Oh, right.
For the
So
last month.
to explain why, just generally why it's an important facet, and ultimately what I actually kind of acquired this month is that, as I was telling the fucking story about the dishes, I'm kind of dancing. Or like I was really happy. I was getting into it. I was having a group. I didn't even need Michael Jackson playing. I was dancing with the dishes. It was I felt great.
I don't think you're allowed to listen to Michael Jackson anymore.
Why?
Because the documentaries and stuff, like apparently he's
What they say is
been canceled, right?
cancel
culture.
He's canceled.
Yeah,
I get
he
you.
is
Okay.
like a kid abuser or whatever.
Yeah, don't
Just joking.
don't
Whatevs.
listen to Michael
whatever you
Jackson.
want.
He may have.
Oh,
I
some
mean,
sick
I'm not
beats
sure
though.
that I actually believe it.
I don't know.
I don't want to. That's the thing. You continue listening to Michael Jackson if you want to, but don't do anything you don't want to.
So you were.
I was dancing. I was having a fucking wonderful time. I felt really good. I was talking.
Of, what, 4 days, 5 days?
Thereabouts.
Okay.
But it wasn't because of that. It was because this woman had said to me the most inspiring and motivating, the most valuable and powerfully impacting fucking thing that I've heard in I don't even remember how long. I have been busting my ass to try and find a real stable, steady, reliable employment for just forever and ever. The last few jobs that I've worked, for the most part, were via a temp service that was like, well, they put me on the job and is at a factory, so it's kind of heavy lifting, and the moment that somebody bigger than me comes in, I'm gone.
Yeah,
just
temp services are definitely flawed, but
they're more than flawed. They're like out of line.
Yeah, they help some people though. I mean,
yeah, I did make a fairly decent amount of
nothing,
money for the time being, but I mean, this was like not at all reliable. It was a total shit show. In what I had to fear for my, the security of my life in these cases, knowing full well that I'm likely going to lose this job in no time. I can't count on it. And so I've been looking for something like this, and for this woman to tell me what she said to me, I mean, that just fucking, I can't
an older
cry
lady?
about it. Well, she's a young lady. She's older than I am.
Well, what
but
was the thing?
What she told me?
Yes.
It was the loyalty that she was going to protect my job.
Oh.
Ensure that I was, effectively on the team. And she said because she likes me. Like, she added that. She said, I like you. And some of the mistakes that I had made that day, I think she said that, regarding them, she said, if it were anybody other than you, I'd probably just let them go. And
oh
then
my God.
Now, the 2 days later, she actually fired somebody who I thought was like a big deal there. I thought this woman was invested.
That happens a lot in my job too and stuff. But still, I realize like the connection with another human. It's a very
Yeah,
beautiful thing, and it was really nice for
right,
her to
and
reach out to you
and
like
then
that.
thereby
but
it becomes
every,
evident that she wasn't bullshitting.
well, yeah, but every boss has a boss. You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah,
So
yeah,
there
yeah.
are things that are out of her control too, I would imagine.
I do believe it's kind of her jurisdiction for the most part, though. But in any case, just her having said that, like, boosted me. It lit me the fuck up inside.
Aw.
I felt so good about that. And as I'm
Well-
talking to myself about that, like as I'm having this personal commentary with myself, it is seriously, like, punctuated, accented by this tray of dishes wandering off the edge of the fucking shelf and smashing at my feet, shattering everywhere. A whole big sheet of the whole fucking floor is covered in broken ceramics now.
God, I'm sorry for laughing, but you are super clumsy.
Yeah, but well, I mean, in this case, it wasn't really. It just it fell off. Like I hadn't even touched it. It was a shitty shelf, and even Megan told me, you know, I told you not to put these heavier things on there, they will fall off. And I remember her telling me that, but she was talking about the table at the time. She wasn't talking about the shelf, but either way, she said don't place things near the edge, so that's...
So somebody straight up told you not to put stuff near the
Yeah,
edge, and
but
then
it was-
you
right, but-
smashed a hole through
I mean,
it.
this
How
is
many
the
plates
dra-
are we talking here?
A lot. I'm great
Like
many.
10, 20?
No, a bunch. More than 10 or 20.
What?
The fucking whole giant rack of them, man. So, yeah, I mean, it's the drying rack. It should, for all intents and purposes, be expected to hold the things that it's drying. That's its
You are
job.
so funny.
But, as I said, my intuition had warned me about this, and I've spoken on this before in other videos wherein I've ignored my intuition on the job, and it's kind of like a really stupid idea, and always results in disaster. And as I was saying, in this instance, I was kind of, I don't know how to say it. I was kind of, I don't want to say forced, but I was kind of pushed for the most part into ignoring my intuition out of fear of being reprimanded in some way or another by doing something other than placing the dishes on the drying rack. Potentially causing for us to have to take more time, if even just moments. I guess they too experience time as kind of protracted. That's something actually I need to mention here. That's one of the points of this video is regarding the time factor. And so, I mean, instead of doing something else that may have taken longer to get these dishes ready, dried off, essentially, I went ahead and just allowed for them all to be destroyed. And I lost it, man. Like, I was already on the edge of kind of breaking down to some extent because of other considerations that have been transpiring at the time, particularly what had happened with my mom. That, again, I'm going to go ahead and forgive her for that. She can let it the fuck go and stop whining about it. Nobody's upset anymore. Everything worked out. So, yeah, as soon as those dishes hit the floor, like, I was ready to have a motherfucking heart attack. They told me, because I got cut picking up the pieces. I got my hand and my wrist cut. So they told me go into the bathroom, and it was, like, particularly like that because I went to the sink. But they told me, no, go ahead and go to the bathroom and do it because they knew. They could see that I was, like, really bad there. And I went in the bathroom, man, and I seriously, like, broke the fuck down. Like, I started crying and shit. Like, that was the worst thing that could have happened. But they all reassured me. Everybody told me that, they've made mistakes like that. It happens on the first days. Don't worry about it. Be humorous about it. Which, of course, brings into play the consideration of how important our sense of humor is going to be in every single instance. You guys need a sense of humor, especially Demi. You are just such a fucking asshole all the time. I'm sorry, but that's a problem. That's a problem on your end that you need to be dealing with. She's a dick. She's a fucking dick.
Well, I don't know.
A stubborn ass. And that's going to be...
It works for some people.
Yeah, and it does kind of work for her. I like it. I find it attractive.
It
but
does, definitely.
It's going to be speaking to that issue regarding the stick to your guns, hold tight mentality, wherein what's happening effectively is we are being haunted. Like the whole damn world, the whole society is being haunted by ghosts from the past that are, I mean, right then and there, the very consideration of us being haunted by these ghosts is one of the considerations one of the primary values likely that's going to be pushing our brain to be considering everything, the life we're living to be a damn living nightmare, which is what that's how people feel nowadays.
I mean, yeah, some people live in a nightmare every day, and it's easy to see why.
Yeah.
Especially
if they're telling themselves that,
Right. It's actually quite sad. I mean, just kind of scrolling through, YouTube looking for cool videos to react to or whatever, you see a lot of anger. There is a lot of anger
dismay,
out there,
depression, anxieties, confusion.
It's like
misunderstanding.
It is like a haunting. It is like how we were talking about earlier, the empowerment, the individual empowerment of deciding that you can change your mind. It's almost like the ideal self version of people who have successfully changed their minds are kind of like haunting them from the future.
Matter of speaking.
It's a weird
that actually
thing.
That fits perfectly.
And people are lost. Some people are just desperately lost.
A lot of people are just desperately lost. We are, and it's going to be because this system, as I stated, that we're fighting to change, it's cornered. It's tooth and nail at this point. It's fucking like, what's his name? It's blood for blood by the fucking gallons. This is the final round.
Marv or Marv?
Marv.
Marv.
Yeah, this is the final round. We are going to win.
By the gallons.
We are going to be successful, but this machine, this programming that's in play that we've been running on for so very long, it's gonna fight desperately like a cornered animal. It's going to make desperate moves in order to attempt to preserve itself. This sucks for us. It's going to be difficult, and as anybody can see, it's getting pretty bleak out there. But this is the darkness before the dawn. I urge you all to take up arms insofar as regards your own mental inventory and the perception and realization of your own responsibility. Most people out there are in fact taking the power they have, the very power of heaven, the power to assess and determine your own reality, to create your own experiences for the most part, and they're using it to effectively just make things worse, to really dump themselves deep into this quagmire. There's so many considerations as to why that might be happening insofar as concerns their personal decisions, but for the most part, it's the decision itself that matters. I urge you all to please go ahead and change your damn mind. That, as this was what we're guarding here, is that
if you have the feelings
if you
being lost
do
and
not,
being helpless and powerless,
right, if you do not want to be in the position that you're in, those feelings belong to you. Yes, you can alter them, and from what we can tell, there is no such thing as a permanent set in your value system. So it's kind of like
it's always shifting.
It's almost like a skill set. I mean, in a way, it is a skill set, but it's a value set.
Totally. I think it's people adapt better when they're able to be kind of more fluid with their principles and their ideas and their ideologies. It gives you an extra kind of little boost when things pop up. You have to adapt, and people have been adapting for eons. That's what we do best. Like I've said many times before,
I love that.
It gives us an edge. When you take that power into your hands. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Ultimately, it's going to be the defining factor that separates us from the animal kingdom. In a manner of speaking, it's going to be our ability to decide, our ability to assess and decide and make decisions that alter the fundamental aspects of our behavior. Like animals, they're going to repeat the process as they have forever and ever. And I mean, it works for them, but it certainly doesn't get them anywhere aside from just continuing to subsist. Whereas human beings, we can decide to engage a new design. We can decide to move forward into advancements as regards our developments as a species. At the same time, we can decide to go backwards and to put ourselves in a damn hole and then set ourselves back. That decision is in our hands. So you do not personally have a permanent, and we can go ahead. In fact, I'm going to say that it could be one of the primary objectives here as regards the whole concept of value and aspects altogether, is to start realizing that and consider it to be a skill set, because ultimately it's those values that are causing for your world to happen. Like where it comes to the laws of attraction, where it comes to synchronicity, it's going to be those subconscious values that are effectively designing what you will experience, not simply the way that you react to it, but the actual happening of it.
Yeah,
The people
I think
you
to
meet,
a certain extent,
you know.
the law of attraction, I feel like that seems kind of hokey to a lot of people, and they, dismiss it out of hand as being woohoo, bullshit or whatever, woo-woo bullshit.
Shit.
Exactly. Which, I mean, with that movie, the Oprah thing, I get it.
The Secret?
Yeah, I get why
I never
it
saw it.
comes across as like a woo-woo thing. But I think, and I don't know if it applies like the same to everybody, because I see, I when you observe things, like you see different people attract different stuff, and some people just seem to attract chaos in a way, like you kind of do. Actually, you totally do.
And crazy girls.
That's another weird thing, like when people make jokes about, well, he knows how to pick them, or, she knows how to pick them, when, you have experience, after experience with, bad boyfriends or girlfriends or what have you. And I feel like that's part of it. That's part of the chaos that, you're attracting every day. And it's hard to dismiss the attraction aspect of it when you see people over and over and over, just with the craziest shit happening to them.
Yeah, right. And to a point of fact, to make an example in that regard, that is the case. Like, I've been involved romantically with just a slew of young ladies that will in fact turn out to be like really far on, like, I don't want to say anything bad about them, they're crazy. They have a really wild and unpredictable sort of mentality that usually winds up getting me in trouble to some extent, at the very least, breaking my damn heart repeatedly. And I mean, a lot of them are going to already be involved with somebody else. I don't love the heartbreaking, but I do love the girls, every single one of them. However,
I mean, is it a question of addiction? Do you remember years ago when my brother had that crazy girl in his life, and it was like this whole thing
which
where...
fucking one, man?
The really, really
Savannah?
bad one.
Oh, man.
The really, really bad
one.
one.
Yeah, she was terrible.
And, I remember talking about it with most people, and this thing went on for such a long time, like a couple of years, I think, at least. And it was just the craziest shit. It could have been a soap opera. I mean,
right,
geez,
like this girl
nuts.
was making up dramas to fucking push this guy to start. She tried to start a fight with me over it. He barely knew me.
Yeah, it was just a lot of crazy antics that were going on, and it almost seemed to me like a type of, like, an addiction almost.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, people get addicted
to
these crazy fights, and they're throwing stuff at each other, and that kind of trashy shit, yelling at each other on the fucking front lawn or whatever.
Jerry Springer shit.
Exactly, it's totally Jerry Springer stuff. But if it keeps happening over and over and over and over, that's an addiction to a certain extent. I mean, that's just like,
yeah, no, it precisely
an
is
alcoholic
that.
or or a junkie or something. Like, it was nuts.
That's something I'd like to make note of as regards our niece, is that it would seem that, in a sense, where we were speaking to her having certain predicaments or issues, for the most part it's going to be some variation of the control dramas that we've already spoken to.
Absolutely.
And so that it is precisely an addiction.
Which, when that you brought up control dramas, I think it's important to say that, it starts when you're little, when you're a really little kid, and people are conditioned in a certain way, and you learn what you're taught, you work with what you're given, which kind of puts everybody in the same category. It puts everyone on the level of starting out as like a victim.
Yeah, and that's a concern that I'd like to raise, is that we also have this kind of categorization complex in play, where everybody wants to be fitting everything, every community and whatnot, into these categories, this category-oriented mentality. That's going to be one of the major problems we have to deal with here, but not to trail off.
That's a way. No. I think it fits perfectly, because that seems like a totally effective control drama. You start putting people that are close to you in these little boxes, and that immediately, I don't know, it's like a weird thing where you immediately have that little bit of power over them once you
stamp
start.
it in some way, put a sticker on it, put a fucking
like,
bird on it. Bonus points to anybody who gets that reference.
I don't know. Anyway, it seems like a effective way to very subtly impart a bit of power over people.
Exact your judgment over it, which
you label and categorize and organize
something
people
to speak to along those lines real quick is that there's a lot of people out there, most especially in the spiritual or metaphysical communities, which I'm thinking we're really not oriented so closely with that. We're more should be regarded as a psychological community. Should we need to categorize ourselves?
I think there's a little aspect of
there's
both.
Everything. We're dealing with everything. Soul mechanics is intending to cover everything in one sleek piece of machinery. Existence as a high-performance machine.
Just put us in a box, bro.
Yeah. We got the biggest box.
The box with all the other boxes.
We have the most interesting box.
But that's effectively what a control drama is. It's the way that you deal with conflict, and that you're taught by your parents, which is normally not. I think people misunderstand the way that process works. Is if your parent or whoever's raising you, or whoever is teaching you when you're a child, has a particular control drama. For example, they're intimidators, and they are super harsh and mean. It doesn't. That doesn't mean that you're going to come out of that chute as an intimidator. It means that you're going to be the opposite, because you've had to adapt to that.
Maybe.
Yes, that's how it works. You end up being one of the poor me's, or the aloof kind of.
Yeah, that's how we expect for it to work in many cases. But actually, as I was speaking to in the previous video I made, which I do not think I'm actually going to go ahead and post because I kind of fucked it up pretty bad, but we should all like to think that, say, for example, somebody who has an abusive past, somebody who's experienced abuses, especially during their formative years,
but like as a child,
even even thereby in such cases as an abusive marriage or abusive relationship of any sort. Like, for example, my father was just criminally abusive in so many different ways, until my mother finally, built up the nerve to go ahead and break free. And that's a whole other story in itself I'd like to tell. So reminding myself to do that. She got the nerve to get away from him, and you should love to expect that she would thereby develop an aversion, a tendency to deject, or to work against, to combat abusive scenarios in other people, even, but most especially in regards to her own life. But
that happens a lot. Those people become, victims become activists.
That's a really
cool cycle.
Yeah, that's an idea. That's a good idea to have, people. Totally. You can always make up your mind on that one, but it seems that a lot of people, if not most of the people that I've encountered via the initiative, which again is a great span of people, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people that I've met one-on-one, that I see this all the time, is that the people who have been abused will effectively, just like my mom seems to do, go ahead and seek it. Like, they have an addiction to being abused.
But I was just going to say, we're talking about breaking an addiction,
right?
Which is hard to do I think most people out there have at least some experience, maybe a family member or a loved one, or even personal experience with that. And, you know, it's very cool when the cycle becomes, you know, the cycle breaks and the victim becomes an activist, but that doesn't always happen. That's in the case that you're able to break that addiction, that cycle of addiction. And, you know, I think it depends on so many different variables.
As I had said,
they need strength, but they also need help and opportunities.
It doesn't seem to be the exception. It seems to be the rule, whereas the activism it seems to be the exception to the rule. I mean, most people who are vehemently activists in any regard, I hate to break it to whomever, but it doesn't seem as though they've really experienced much of what they're combating. Personally,
you don't know everyone's story.
No, I don't know everybody's story, but I mean, in a manner of speaking, I do know everybody's story.
And in the cases where it's, you know, somebody that maybe doesn't have personal experiences with any kind of victimization, and they end up being extremely...
It could be secondhand.
And they end up being activists just because they're extremely passionate about
something.
It could be secondhand.
It could be an innate, objective
concern. Exactly. Synchronicities plop them right there in that...
and that's
position to be able to speak and fight for others. That's fantastic. That's a beautiful thing.
To play a few dramatically purposeful notes in this song, as regards synchronicity and as regards parenting and all of this fitting together in a neat little package, that's going to be how it actually works. As regards the laws of attraction is, for example, you're going to be taught by example. So, you know, as we were saying earlier, it's going to be somewhat troublesome for you to give up smoking should you start if your parents smoked, like you've been led by that example. So it's going to be, again, on one hand, like attracts like, and this is not, it's not like this woo-woo magical thing. It's just obvious common sense. That's what you're going to portray. In most cases, you're going to follow the example that's given to you in your formative years.
And like I mentioned earlier when we were chatting, the like attracts like, the children learn from example kind of thing, that translates into adults. Like, older people also...
Oh yeah, that was a great point.
Yeah, older people also learn what they're taught, what they're shown. We learn from example, no matter what the hell age you are.
Yeah, the greatest
that
parents...
doesn't just stop when you're, 18 or whatever.
The professional parents, as we might say, the people who are really in it to win it, they're going to be learning from their child.
Yeah, and vice versa. It goes back and forth, because to set that example, you need to have obviously some kind of motivating factor.
Yeah, and you need to be learning in order to improve, right?
When the kid itself is that motivating factor, you might be sacrificing something, or you might be changing some way that you behave or your habits or whatever. That means that you've then done that for that child, but then that child has also done it for you. So it's a two-way street. And so when people say shit like, we don't learn from children, like that, stupid bullshit. It's a
mutually beneficial arrangement that if you're not learning from your children, you are failing to make the most effective use of your time. Like, people who think that way are going to reject what kids say because they're younger. Like, that doesn't really add up, does it? Because, I mean, if they say something that makes sense and you blow it off because they're younger than you, that makes you a fucking idiot, doesn't it?
It is pretty shitty. I love that what was that show where the kids remembered their past lives?
I don't remember.
I can't remember what it was called. And they would have, like...
You're not talking about the OA.
No. It was like a documentary kind of thing, like an Unsolved Mysteries format, where they would, like, interview kids and the parents and stuff. And it was like,
oh, this was a real...
Yeah, stories of
That's
kids.
Probably, I'm going to find that on
really
YouTube and give you a link to that.
Kids that remember their past lives.
I remember seeing that,
yeah. As the show portrays or whatever. It could be scripted, I have no idea. But there was that one kid there was that one kid that remembered stuff, and he was telling his mom all these different things, and she finally just started doing like research or whatever, because the kid came with like a name and like geographical information, right, and found like a World War II veteran or something that like died in a plane crash and had the same name and the same story and the same attributes and all these things, and it was so cool. But they would do like, I don't know, like 2 kids an episode or something, 3 kids an episode or whatever, and it's always some really really young kid, and even if it is scripted, whatever, I enjoyed it. It was entertaining, but it also goes to show that a lot of real insight and important shit can come through kids, whether you are paying attention to it or not.
Yeah, if you're not paying attention to it, you're very simply going to miss it. And it could be the determining factor that makes the difference for you.
And if they're not a blank slate, so to speak, which I hate that term, because slate is never blank. You can always see what was on it before. Anyways, if they're not in fact a blank slate, which is what everyone says about children, then they're a blanker slate than we are right now, and so it's still kind of...
But wouldn't that stand to reason that they would be that much more valuable? Give us a moment. We need to pause.